The sound came first, not the soft hum of sprinklers or the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, but the clang of steel biting steel. I was 8,000 miles away, breathing desert dust, when my sister's voice ripped through the satellite delay. Donc, Maya whispered, Shaki, urgent. Someone's cutting your lock. Her phone camera wobbled, grainy in the pre-dawn light of Willowbrook Estates. The neighborhood looked like a movie set, perfect lawns, cookie-cutter homes, not a soul awake. But in the frame stood a woman in a silk bathrobe, bolt cutters glinting like fangs. Bethany Kensington Wright, HOA president, real estate queen, suburban royalty. She wasn't just stealing a Jeep. She was declaring war. 3 months earlier, I thought inheriting Grandma Rose's house was a blessing, a little corner of home to come back to between deployments. The place still smelled like her tortillas and lavender candles, every floorboard remembering her voice. Stand up to bullies, mijo, but do it the right way. I never thought I needed to defend that house like I was clearing an enemy compound. Willowbrook Estates looked peaceful, but the peace was fake, manicured hedges hiding rot. Everyone whispered about Bethany, but no one challenged her. 7 years as HOA president had turned her into a suburban dictator. She measured lawns with a ruler, fined retirees for unsightly bird baths, and sent violation notices for Christmas lights still shining on January 2nd. I didn't expect to be next on her list. 2 weeks into my latest deployment, I got an email, unauthorized vehicle storage, $50 per day fine. The vehicle in question? A government-issued Jeep Wrangler, task force property, sitting in my driveway under federal authorization. It wasn't just transportation. It carried surveillance gear worth more than my house. But to Bethany, it was an eyesore. Maya tried explaining. She even brought my deployment papers to Bethany's door. The response was ice cold. Rules are rules. If your brother can't follow them, maybe your family doesn't belong here. That was the first crack in Willowbrook's perfect picture. Maya noticed something bigger, other military families getting the same treatment. Petit finis, fake violations, quiet pressure to sell their homes. It wasn't about grass height. It was about power and profit. I felt it in the desert heat, that same old grit in my teeth I'd tasted on missions against cartel networks. My Jeep wasn't just a target. It was bait. Someone thought we were too busy serving our country to fight back. They thought wrong. Maya's next call confirmed it. Tank, she's threatening to tow it. There's a guy in a truck circling the block. He keeps staring at the Jeep like he owns it. I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles popped. I'd seen intimidation tactics before, just not on my grandmother's street. I called in favors from military lawyers and my task force supervisor. If Bethany touched that Jeep, she'd be crossing federal lines she didn't even know existed. But power makes people stupid. The real twist came when Maya dug through Grandma's old HOA records. Buried deep in yellowed paper was the truth. Military and government vehicles were specifically protected by the original bylaws. Bethany wasn't enforcing rules. She was inventing them. And she wasn't acting alone. Her husband, Carl, a city councilman with big development deals in the works, needed certain houses available. Houses owned by people like us. People who wouldn't roll over. Every false citation, every whispered threat was part of a quiet campaign to push military families out. By the time Maya told me, I'd already decided. This wasn't an HOA dispute. This was organized harassment, and I wasn't coming home to write angry letters. I was coming home to dismantle their little empire. But I didn't expect Bethany to make the first move. The night before dawn broke over Willowbrook, she crept onto our driveway with bolt cutters in hand, ready to slice through steel and steal federal property. Maya's shaking phone caught it all. The glint of metal, the hiss of breath, the wild look in Bethany's eyes. Clang, clang, clang. That was the sound of a suburban queen crossing into federal felony territory. And somewhere under the desert stars, I swore to myself, when I get home, this neighborhood will never fear her again. The first thing you learn in federal law enforcement: predators test boundaries before they attack. They start with small bites, watching to see if you flinch. Bethany Kensington Wright was no different. The morning after her bolt cutter stunt, Maya found an envelope taped to our front door. Not a polite warning, A registered letter with legal-looking seals threatening emergency vehicle removal within 24 hours. Inside, Bethany's signature curled like a dagger. Failure to comply will result in further action. The fine, $50 a day, retroactive to the date I deployed. The language dripped with authority until you actually read it. Purification repti nakawa lettired. Maya's voice shook when she called me. Tank, she's serious. She said Carl's got friends on the school board. If I don't back off, it could hurt my job. My kid sister, who spent her life teaching 12-year-olds to believe in fairness, now sat at Grandma's kitchen table surrounded by threats. I could almost smell the vanilla candles mixed with fear in her voice. I told her to stay calm and to document everything. Photos, emails, phone calls. If Bethany wanted a paper trail, we'd give her one that led straight to a federal courtroom. But Bethany wasn't bluffing. By afternoon, a white SUV circled the block 3 times. Security decals on the side. 2 guys inside, the kind who wear sunglasses even in the shade. Maya swore one of them was taking pictures of my Jeep. I knew the type. Failed cops with a chip on their shoulder, hired muscle for people who can't fight their own battles. That night, Maya texted me a video, Bethany herself, heels clicking on the driveway, tape measure in hand, photographing the Jeep like it was evidence in a murder trial. Your brother's military service doesn't excuse non-compliance, Bethany told Maya on camera, her voice sweet as poison. Perhaps your family should reconsider whether this neighborhood is appropriate for your lifestyle. Code words. I'd heard them overseas, different accent, same meaning. We don't want her kind here. Maya's next discovery blew the lid off. Digging through Grandma's dusty HOA files, she found the original covenants signed in 1987, buried in the fine print. A clause explicitly protecting government, military, and emergency service vehicles. The very rule Bethany claimed I was violating. She's making it up, Maya said, her voice hardening with every word. Tank, she's done this to every military family here. The Johnsons, the Hendersons, even Mrs. Martinez when her husband was deployed. They just didn't fight back. That was the crack in Bethany's armor. Bullies thrive on silence. Maya wasn't silent anymore. I called in a favor to Staff Sergeant Patricia Williams, a JAG attorney who treats constitutional violations like breakfast cereal. She read Bethany's letter once and didn't even look up. Rodriguez, this isn't an HOA issue. It's a federal felony. Threatening deployed service members' property is prohibited under the Service Members Civil Relief Act. And that Jeep of yours. She tapped the file. It's government property. Anyone who touches it isn't just breaking a rule. They're tampering with federal surveillance equipment. But even as I built my legal arsenal, Bethany built her narrative. Her security goons started whispering to neighbors. Military vehicles are dangerous. They bring trouble. Federal task force equipment puts everyone at risk. By the end of the week, Mrs. Patterson, the sweetest old woman in the neighborhood, wouldn't make eye contact with Maya at the mailbox. Parents at Maya's school started asking if Mr. Rodriguez's brother was dangerous. Bethany was poisoning the air, and my sister was suffocating in it. I could feel the pressure building like a desert storm. Bethany wasn't just after my Jeep. She wanted my family gone. She wanted every military family gone. And Carl's development company, the one promising luxury condos to out-of-state investors, needed our houses cleared to make it happen. The last straw came late one night when Maya's voice cracked through my satellite phone. Tank, there's a tow truck outside. He's circling again. Stay inside. I told her. Don't confront him. Keep filming. From 8,000 miles away, I accessed my Jeep's security system. Infrared cameras, GPS trackers, motion sensors. Standard issue for federal vehicles. What I saw made my blood run cold. Bethany herself, flashlight in hand, peering through the windows, pointing out equipment to the hired guards. They weren't just planning to tow it. They were cataloging surveillance gear. I'd seen this before. Cartel scouts casing DEA vans. Corrupt politicians sniffing out what they didn't understand. But this wasn't Mexico. This was my grandmother's driveway. I swore under that endless desert sky. If Bethany thought she could intimidate my family, I'd show her exactly what intimidation looked like when it wore a federal badge. The storm was coming, and she had no idea she just picked a fight with someone trained to dismantle criminal organizations, starting with hers. The storm finally broke at 1:43 a.m. Maya woke to the sound of metal scraping metal, a sound no one forgets once they've heard it. She peeked through Grandma's curtains and froze. Bethany Kensington Wright wasn't sending letters anymore. She was standing in our driveway with bolt cutters, hair wild, silk robe flapping like a flag of arrogance. 2 private security guards hovered near the curb, cameras out, documenting every move. Maya whispered into her phone, voice tight with panic. "Tank, she's here. She's cutting the chain." I was 8,000 miles away, staring at the grainy live stream through my Jeep security system. Every time her bolt cutters bit into the lock, I felt it like a punch to the chest. Clang, 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 and then it snapped. The Jeep's onboard systems went live automatically. Hidden GPS pinging federal servers, motion sensors recording every angle. I'd seen cartel smugglers make dumber moves, but never in broad suburban daylight, or rather, suburban darkness. The tow truck driver Bethany had hired took one look at the federal decals and muttered, "Lady, I'm not touching that. You're insane." He peeled off, tires screaming. But Bethany wasn't done. She barked at her security team to secure the vehicle and waved new gate keys in Maya's direction. If your brother wants his precious toy back, he can follow proper HOA procedure. That was her fatal mistake, locking a federal vehicle inside a private community and blocking law enforcement access. She just turned a civil dispute into federal obstruction of justice. But the real gut punch wasn't legal. It was personal. I could hear Maya crying on the line, not out of fear but out of rage. "She's telling neighbors you're dangerous," Maya said through clenched teeth. "She's saying military families bring trouble. Parents at school are whispering about me." I never heard my little sister sound like that. Not scared, betrayed. By dawn, the damage was spreading. Bethany's smear campaign worked faster than any virus. Teachers were asking if Maya's presence made the community less stable. Mrs. Patterson, who used to bake us cookies, crossed the street to avoid her. The neighborhood we loved was turning cold. That was the moment my mission changed. This wasn't just about saving a Jeep or even protecting Grandma's house. This was about stopping someone who believed she was untouchable, someone willing to destroy innocent people to protect her throne. Maya found a smoking gun later that day. Sifting through Grandma's HOA files, she uncovered minutes from a 2019 board meeting. A letter Bethany wrote to the city council urging them to discourage transient military populations because they don't invest in long-term community values. It wasn't about grass height. It was about pushing out anyone who didn't fit her image: soldiers, veterans, widows, people she thought couldn't fight back. When Maya read it aloud over the phone, her voice cracked. "Tank, this isn't just harassment. This is discrimination. She's been targeting families like ours for years." I tasted sand in my teeth as anger boiled up, cold and clear. Overseas, I'd learned to separate emotion from strategy. You don't win firefights by charging blindly. You win by staying calm while the enemy panics. Bethany was panicking now. I called Captain Sarah Chun, my task force supervisor. She didn't mince words. "Rodriguez, if she's tampering with federal surveillance equipment, this isn't an HOA problem. It's a national security incident." Within hours, JAG lawyers filed a formal complaint, and federal marshals flagged the property. But even that didn't stop Bethany. She doubled down, hired more guards, spread more lies, even cornered Maya outside a grocery store. One of the guards leaned in, invading her space. "Ma'am, vehicles like your brother's attract dangerous attention. We just want to know what kind of operations he's running from that house." Maya, bless her courage, started recording. Her voice stayed steady. "Are you suggesting my brother's service makes him a threat?" The guard smirked. "Sometimes military personnel bring problems." That recording became evidence in a federal civil rights case. But to me, it was gasoline on fire. They weren't just harassing Maya. They were trying to brand every soldier in America as a liability. That night, I sat in my desert tent under a black sky, staring at the glow of my laptop. I wasn't just Marcus Tank Rodriguez anymore. deployed soldier, federal agent. I was a man with a target on his family, and I decided something I'd never decided on foreign soil. This wouldn't end with a warning. It wouldn't end with a fine. When I came home, I wasn't just going to clear my name. I was going to dismantle Bethany's entire empire, piece by piece, law by law, until there was nothing left for her to hide behind. I landed stateside 72 hours later, still tasting desert sand on my tongue, still hearing the metallic snap of Bethany's bolt cutters in my head. Grandma's house didn't smell like lavender and tortillas anymore. It smelled like fear. Maya was waiting in the kitchen, dark circles under her eyes, papers spread across the table like a battle map. "Tank, you need to see this," she said, her hands trembling as she pushed a manila folder toward me. Inside were HOA financial records, meeting minutes, and something that made my blood run cold, a development contract signed by Carl Wright, Bethany's husband. The document listed dozens of Willowbrook homes marked for acquisition facilitation, including Grandma's. The handwriting in the margins said it all: remove resistant families. "They planned this, Tank," Maya whispered. "They were pushing out every military family, every elderly resident, anyone who couldn't fight back." I clenched my jaw. Overseas, I'd taken down cartel cells with less paperwork. This wasn't just HOA bullying. This was organized crime hiding behind white fences and welcome signs. We turned Grandma's living room into a war room. Captain Chin flew in with federal prosecutors. Tom Henderson, a Vietnam vet from down the street, brought his own network of veterans ready to stand watch. Mrs. Patterson showed up with surveillance photos of Bethany's midnight meetings. Maya's teacher friends provided communication support, spreading the truth through whispered phone calls and social media threads. But Bethany didn't back down. If anything, she got bolder. She hired new guards after the first crew vanished under federal scrutiny. She filed false police reports claiming Maya was unstable. Anonymous notes appeared under Maya's windshield. Accidents happen to teachers who don't know their place. "Tank, she's not just coming after you," Maya said one night, voice cracking. "She's trying to destroy my career, my life." That hit harder than anything I'd faced overseas. You expect enemies on foreign soil. You don't expect them in your grandmother's driveway, wearing designer perfume. We built our counterattack carefully. Maya collected sworn statements from every military family Bethany had targeted. Jag atonis prepid discrimination complaints. Federal forensic accountants traced $184,000 in HOA funds funneled into Carl's company through fake community projects. Every move Bethany made was another crime added to the list. But it was costing us. Maya's car was vandalized, all 4 tires slashed, military scum spray painted across the windshield in dripping red letters. She called me from the curb, voice shaking as she stepped over broken glass. "Tank, they're trying to scare me out of this." I put a hand on her shoulder, steadying her trembling frame. "Maya, they don't get to win. Not here. Not in Grandma's house." That night, we set up a DIY surveillance grid. Hidden cameras in windows. Neighbors on rotating watch. Federal agents who looked like morning joggers. Bethany's every move was being documented while she thought she was in control. Then she made the mistake that sealed her fate. She tried to buy us off. Maya was loading groceries when Bethany appeared beside her car, an envelope bulging with cash. "This is $50,000, Bethany hissed, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. "Take it. Find a neighborhood better suited for people like you." Maya, bless her courage, didn't flinch. She just hit record on her phone. "Are you bribing me to leave my home?" she asked, voice cold. Bethany's hand shook. "This neighborhood deserves stability. Your brother's presence makes people nervous." That recording went straight to federal investigators. But Bethany still didn't see the walls closing in. She thought local power and money would shield her from consequences. I knew better. I'd seen cartel bosses smile through handcuffs, thinking they were untouchable, right before they disappeared into federal custody. Bethany was on that same path. But as our case built strength, so did the danger. Death threats escalated. Federal agents traced them to private investigators Bethany had hired with embezzled funds. Listening devices were found in Maya's car. Surveillance teams caught Bethany burning financial records in our backyard at 3 in the morning, lighter fluid staining her robe. The pressure was crushing. Maya tried to hide it, but I saw her hands tremble every time the phone rang. I'd fought wars overseas, but I'd never felt this helpless, watching my little sister pay the price for my uniform and my refusal to back down. This ends soon, I promised her, though the words tasted like grit. She doesn't know it yet, but she's already lost. The climax was coming. A confrontation Bethany couldn't walk away from. A battle she couldn't win. And when it hit, the whole neighborhood, maybe the whole country, would see exactly what happens when suburban tyranny collides with federal justice. The morning it all came crashing down was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no sprinklers, just a tension that made the air feel heavy. At 6:47 a.m., Maya's security camera lit up. Bethany Kensington Wright, bathrobe swishing like a battle flag, strode into our driveway with a fresh pair of bolt cutters. Her hair was frizzed from sleepless nights, her hands shaking with the kind of desperation that smells like fear. She wasn't alone. 2 men in a battered tow truck idled at the curb. "Just cut it," Bethany snapped, waving the drivers forward. "It's abandoned property. I have legal authority." The driver took one look at the Jeep's federal decals and started backing away. "Lady, that's government equipment. I'm not touching it." Bethany lost it. "Do you know who I am? I'm HOA president. I'll have you arrested for trespassing." Maya, standing on the porch with her phone camera rolling, spoke just loud enough for the mic to catch. "Bethany, this is federal property. Step away." Bethany turned, eyes wild. "Your brother isn't special. Military service doesn't make him above the rules." She snapped the lock in 3 vicious strikes. Clang, clang, clang. The moment the chain hit the pavement, my Jeep's kill switch security engaged. GPS pinging federal servers, silent alarms screaming through Homeland Security databases. 8,000 miles away, I got the alert. "Target tampering, classified vehicle." I called Captain Shun. Her response was cold steel. "Stay put. We're sending marshals now." Within minutes, black SUVs with flashing lights tore into Willowbrook Estates. Federal agents in windbreakers poured out, weapons low but ready. Neighbors peered through curtains as sirens shattered the suburban calm. Bethany wasn't ready for that. She tried blocking the Jeep with her body, waving HOA gate keys like they were a crown. "You can't come in here. This is private property." Marshal Jennifer Torres stepped forward, voice amplified by a bullhorn. "Ma'am, you are obstructing federal officers in recovery of government property. Step aside." Bethany's voice cracked with hysteria. "I don't recognize federal authority in my neighborhood." The words hung in the air like a dare, the kind of dare only a fool makes. Neighbors started gathering. Tom Henderson, Vietnam vet, marched into the street holding a flag. "You want that Jeep, you go through 30 American veterans first," he shouted, his voice trembling with fury. One by one, people joined him, soldiers, teachers, elderly neighbors, forming a human wall in front of Grandma's house. Bethany's kingdom crumbled in real time. The very people she'd ruled with fear now stood against her, cameras out, recording every second. I arrived just as the last piece of her arrogance cracked. Stepping out of a black SUV in desert-stained fatigues, I walked past the wall of neighbors, past the marshals holding the perimeter. Bethany froze when she saw me. For the first time, she didn't look like a queen, just a woman cornered by the truth. "Marcus Rodriguez," Marshal Torres said, handing me a clipboard. "You need to witness this." I faced Bethany, voice steady, calm, the way it gets when you've been trained to arrest men who think they're untouchable. "You didn't just harass my family. You interfered with federal law enforcement operations. You targeted military families for profit, and you thought no one would stop you." Her lips trembled. "You can't do this." I have rights." "Yeah," I said, stepping closer, "and so did everyone you bullied." Torres clicked the cuffs, shut with a sound louder than any siren. "Bethany Kensington Wright, you're under arrest for theft of federal property, conspiracy to violate civil rights, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice." The neighbors erupted, not in anger but in applause. The kind of applause that shakes windows, that feels like sunlight breaking through clouds after a storm. Carl tried slipping out the back gate, but 2 federal agents were waiting. His face was pale, his shoulders slumped, his empire of lies collapsing around him. As Bethany was led to the waiting SUV, she tried one last bluff. "This is all a mistake. I run this neighborhood." Tom Henderson stepped forward, voice like gravel. "Not anymore." I turned to Maya, who stood on the porch with tears running down her face. Not fear this time, but relief. "It's over," I said softly. She shook her head. "No, don't. This is just the beginning." The chains Bethany had tried to cut from my Jeep had snapped back on her wrists. The Queen of Willowbrook had fallen, and the whole country was about to see exactly what federal justice looks like when a bully finally crosses the line. 18 months later, the neighborhood didn't feel like the same place. The beige houses were still lined up in perfect rows, the sprinklers still hissed at dawn, but something fundamental had shifted. Fear no longer lived here. Bethany Kensington Wright is now inmate #46873-219 at a federal facility in West Virginia. 8 years without parole. Carl served 6, barred for life from public office. Their gated kingdom, the one they thought untouchable, had been stripped down to concrete and numbers in a courtroom. The day of sentencing, Maya squeezed my hand so tightly it hurt. The judge's words still ring in my ears. "Your systematic harassment of military families represents domestic terrorism disguised as community governance. This court will not tolerate it." But the real victory didn't come from the prison terms. It came from watching Willowbrook breathe again. The house that once smelled of Grandma's tortillas and lavender now smells of fresh paint and coffee. Maya's laughter fills it instead of whispered fear. She's no longer just a teacher. She's the new HOA president, elected unanimously by neighbors who finally found their voice. Her first act was passing the Military Family Bill of Rights, now copied by communities across the country. Where Bethany's mansion once stood, there's a park. A flagpole rises from the ground, flanked by a plaque. "To those who serve, your home will always be your sanctuary." On Dedication Day, veterans raised the flag while children ran barefoot through the grass Bethany once measured with a ruler. Tom Henderson gave a salute that trembled with age and pride. Mrs. Patterson, 91 and sharp as ever, cut the ribbon with tears in her eyes. Property values rose 30% after the corruption was cleared out, proof that integrity builds stronger communities than intimidation ever could. But that number doesn't matter to me as much as one simple thing. Neighbors wave now. They stop to talk. They protect one another. And Maya? She's changed more than anyone. I used to think of her as the little sister I needed to shield from the world. Now I see her for what she is, the kind of woman who can stare down corruption with a stack of evidence and a steady voice. She turned Grandma's dining table into mission control and taught an entire neighborhood how to stand up without flinching. The case sparked something bigger than Willowbrook. Federal legislation now requires HOA financial transparency and protects service members from targeted harassment. Lawyers call it the Tank Rodriguez Act, but I know who really made it happen: Maya and the families who refused to stay silent. On the first Freedom Day celebration in the new park, hundreds of veterans gathered with their families. Children hung homemade flags from the swing set, and someone grilled burgers on the edge of the field. The same driveway where Bethany cut my lock was now just part of a safe, ordinary street, the kind Grandma always wanted. As the sun dipped low, I stood with Maya under the new flag. The cloth snapped in the wind, catching the last golden light. "You did it," I told her. She shook her head. "No, we did. And Grandma was right. You stand up to bullies, but you do it the right way." For a moment, I could almost hear Rosa Rodriguez humming in the breeze, her voice warm and steady. "Mijo, never forget where you come from. Never forget who you protect." Bethany thought power came from fear. She never understood that real power lives in people who stand together. Neighbors forming human shields, veterans walking patrols at 2 in the morning, a sister who refuses to back down even when she's alone on a dark street. I look at that flag every morning now, rising over Willowbrook's quiet streets. Not as a symbol of victory over one corrupt woman, but as proof that no community is too small to fight for, no family too ordinary to defend. Justice isn't loud. It doesn't brag. It stands still, steady as the flag on that pole, and lets bullies discover, too late, that they were never as powerful as they believed. And in that stillness, I swear I can hear Grandma again, her voice in every rustle of the wind. This is what home feels like when fear is gone.